Hi everyone, Brian from Variable Traders here. It is July 23rd. This is the weekend video. We'll take a look at what happened last week and then look ahead. We got a lot of stuff coming up this week. We're into earnings season and we got a really big earnings week coming up. Lots of high profile companies. Plus we got that Fed decision that's coming on hiking interest rates. So let's get into it. So, and as always, let's start out with taking a look what happened last week. Was a pretty good week overall, actually, for the bulls. Despite the sell-off we did see on Friday, earnings so far in this first big week of earnings, some have been good, like American Express, for an example, and some have been not so good, like Snap we had on Thursday. Really got taken to the woodshed there. But overall in the week, you can see here we had a really nice run up on all the indexes. The Qs and the IWM performing the best, and of course it was a risk-on week, meaning money rotated into riskier assets. And so, of course, when that happens, the more safe assets get sold, and of course that's exactly what we saw: utilities, healthcare staples. The more safety trades down on the week, which was, you could almost flip this around from the previous week. They were up last week and the markets were down. So now they're down this week and the markets are up. And what was up? Consumer discretionary, obviously, when consumers are spending money. It's risk on. Industrials were good, materials were good. And of course, the Treasury note, it really dropped back below this 3% level, which it was at prior week, and also the 2-year dropped below 3%. But you can see they're still inverted, which is, again, it can predict a recession, a coming recession, when the 2s and the 10s are inverted. In other words, the 2s are higher on a yield than the 10, which isn't normal. As you go further out in time, you would want to see the yields higher. The US dollar, it's been on a monster run, but we did have a pullback, and it was due for a pullback, so dropped about 1 1/3% on the week. But overall, I would say the trend is still up. We'll look at that chart in a minute. And Bitcoin. Bitcoin, of course, it's just moving just like a risk asset, and risk was on last week, so it actually broke through this 22,000 level of resistance, and it just, like I said, continues to just trade correlated to whether we're risk on or risk off. And before we start looking at some charts, a quick ad for my book on Amazon, Profiting as an Active Trader, Guide to Tools, Money Management Rules, Strategies, Routines for Active Stock and Option Traders. So let's move on and look at some charts. Starting out, as always, with the bonds and the treasuries. Again, we talked about this a little already. We did pull back a little bit on the week here. You can see the 2-year drop below the 3% level. And the 10-year also pulled back pretty significantly here below the 3% level as well. And again, sort of maybe a feeling that, we're getting into a recession at some point, and the Fed is going to have to respond by pulling interest rates back. So it's kind of, this bond market seems to be at least hinting towards that. On the transports, on the daily, obviously, we've had a nice run up here in midweek, and then kind of stalled out Thursday and Friday, pulled back a little on Friday, but we did break out of this downtrend, and we may have a bit of more of a pullback, but the trend is definitely looking like we are going to be heading possibly higher here. On a weekly, you can see here, nice breakout on the weekly as well on the transports. Volume, not so bad. Always looking for volume in terms of a confirmation of a move. The Dow, again, we have broken out of a downward trend, and we're definitely due for a little bit of a pullback. So we got that on Friday with that PMI number possibly leading to that pullback. But again, we are definitely seem to be breaking out of this this narrow trading range. At least broke through this prior level of support, which became resistance, and we pushed through it. And so it seems that we are pretty extended here, but the trend has definitely started to change here. The Dow on a weekly, we still haven't broken out quite yet on the weekly, although if we redraw this here, you could argue on a shorter time frame we actually have broken out. The Qs, again, nice move up during the week, bit of a pullback Friday, but overall trend is looking pretty good here. We are pretty extended. Stochastics are quite high. We are rolling over a little bit here, so maybe another bit of a pullback. I think a lot of these indexes are really going to feed off of what we hear from the various companies that report this week, and as you'll I'll do this in the quick review at the what we're looking forward to next week. But there are a lot of big companies reporting this week. There's the big company names that make up 40% of the index on the SPY are reporting. So they're going to have a big influence regardless on which direction the markets take after they report and we get guidance. Apple Thursday is going to be the big day. We've got Amazon and Apple. We've got Facebook Wednesday. We'll go into that in a minute. But you can see here the Qs are definitely, we are coming off a pretty low base here on the stochastics, RSI heading up. So Qs right now looking positive. But again, a lot of it's going to key off the earnings reports and what we hear from these various companies as they roll out their earnings this week and give some guidance, even more important. On the SPY, again, breaking out of a bit of a range here, that's a bit of a pennant. You can see there, or ascending triangle, there's your prior level of support, became resistance here, and now we broke out a little bit. So stochastics, again, turning up here, RSI turning up. So trend is definitely upwards unless we get some negative news that might cause the market to turn over again. IWM, again, nice little breakout here. We did have a big pullback on Friday. On a weekly basis, again, not super great volume, but we touched this trend line and couldn't break through it, but the IWM has been lagging and will probably lag a little bit. Even though we were down on the week, I just wanted to note this specifically, we were down not on the week, but on Friday we were down. But you can see here the VIX did not respond as you would have normally expected. Now normally volatility does drop on a Friday going into a weekend, but we didn't see a huge spike in volatility despite the fact we had a pretty significant down day on Friday. So again, sort of an indication, a real lack of fear in the market in terms of people reaching for protection in the case of market rolling over. And the dollar, you can see here the dollar is kind of pulling back, has pulled back after this big run up. And Europe raised rates, I believe, and sort of that took a little bit of the wind out of the strong dollar with their rising interest rates here in the North American side of things. But it's still holding in this range here. So we did try to fill a gap here and came back up. So it's looking like it's trying to hold, and we may resume this uptrend here. Volume was not bad. I'll be watching this range here. We almost tried to fill this gap, but again, I'd be looking, if we did fill a gap, it might turn and go higher here. Bitcoin, again, Bitcoin's really, as I mentioned already, just trading like a risk asset. So you can see here as I'm doing this chart right now, because it's always trading 24/7. So we did have a breakout of this 22,000 level. Pretty convincing breakout. We've had a pullback here. So quite often what happens in these things is you'll get a breakout through a level of resistance, like this 22,000 level. After this initial breakout, you'll get some selling. You'll come back and retest the breakout level and then go higher. So we'll be watching this 22,000 level to see if it actually holds and acts as an area of support. Level is going to be a prior level of resistance will now become support, and maybe we'll get an ABCD pattern which will take us higher. If it drops back down below 22,000 again, it's going to depend on the market. I think if we continue to go higher and risk on trades are working, then I believe Bitcoin will also trade in the same direction. So you can see here we tested the 200-day moving average on the weekly chart and rejected from it. So we're just down below that level right there. And finally, let's take a look at a couple of stocks that I'm watching here this week. Apple's had a really nice run back up to this 150 level. We did stall out here. You can see that's kind of an area you'd expect. This was kind of an area where we had some support and then broke down from. So we did manage to get through this sort of 150 level. 155 was the next sort of anticipated level of resistance. We're still below the 200-day on the daily. But Apple was reporting Thursday, so I won't be playing it into earnings, but maybe looking for an options trade possibly after earnings. A firm, I was looking at a firm here because it basically on Friday it rejected this 30 level, which is prior support here, became resistance here, and so again, sort of an expected rejection from this level. And of course, when the market sold off, a firm responded as well. And I kind of feel like a firm is a little bit vulnerable here, especially with AT&T warning that their late payments are up significantly, which tells you some segment of their customer base is struggling to make payments on their cell phone bills, which is a little bit of a concern because people always pay their utilities and their cell phone bills before they pay anything else other than their mortgage. So, if they're not paying their phone bills, that paying for that TV that they bought on layaway, whatever you want to call it, buy now, pay later, like these companies like Affirm, you might think they might be a little bit vulnerable. So I did play this to the short side as a day trade. I decided to keep some, and we'll see what happens here. I'll use above 30 as a stop out on this one. Amazon, again, it reports on Thursday. Again, we came right back up into an area of prior resistance and rejected from it very timely on Friday. And there's your support right around 105. So 125 to 105 seems to be an area that Amazon's comfortable in, and it might be a decent earnings play to do a straddle. So we'll see how that trades going into earnings. BABA doesn't seem to be trading very well. We had a good week in the markets, but BABA really did not make any headway at all here. Now we've got some earnings coming up in early August, I believe next week, not next week, but the week after. But again, this when the markets are going up and the stock isn't, and then we had a breakdown from a sort of a critical level here. We almost broke down through 100. I'm watching BABA for possible short, but keeping in mind that we are going into a possible an earnings call, not next week, but the week after. So don't really like to hold stocks through an earnings report. Again, still in CHPT, came ripping back up today or this week, and looks like we got to 15, rejected it. I was hoping it would get a little higher, but I'm still holding that one. Ford, I was going to trade some leaps, which are long-dated options, like going into 2023, but I know Ford's reporting this week, so I'm going to wait for them to report and see how things go there, but I may do a leap trade after that report. IBM looks like, they didn't have a bad earnings report, but the market sure didn't like it, and they really just sold off 3 days. And then the fourth day, there's this 3-day rule where you wait for a stock after a big move to settle out. So 3-day rule would have worked out perfectly because you found there 126 was the area where it wanted to find support, which is right back at this low 125.80. So again, maybe selling some puts here right now. 126 might be a decent trade for IBM. Neo's in the possibly going to get delisted. I mean, it's on the list of possible delisting Chinese companies, but it again, same comment as BABA. Really, good week in the market. Not a good week for Neo and BABA and some of the other Chinese stocks, as it really broke down and lost this 20 level. So we got July deliveries coming up on in about a week or so, but Neo looking really pretty sad here. So I'm short a small amount of that right now. I shorted it on Friday on that bad on that bad price action it had. USO, we seem to be stuck in a range here on the oil. XLE. Again, we've got a lot of the integrated oil companies reporting this week, so it'll be interesting because these integrated oil companies are heavily weighted in this index. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, going to be partly dependent on the price of where oil goes. And technology, as I mentioned last week, technology looked good, and we had a really nice week here. Yeah, so I'd be watching to see what happens. Maybe sitting on the sidelines now and waiting for some of these earnings from these big companies to roll in. And that's about it. So let's wrap things up here for the look ahead on the week. As I said here, we've got a slew of earnings coming up, a lot of big ones. We'll jump to the bottom of the slide here. We got Google, Microsoft, Visa, Whirlpool, give us sort of a read on how housing's doing. We've got Coke, McDonald's, UPS, GM on Tuesday, Boeing on Wednesday with Shop, Meta, Ford, and QCOM. Should be interesting. And we got MasterCard, some of the pharma companies, Apple and Amazon, Intel. Thursday is going to be a big day. And of course, we got we got lots of the integrated oil companies on Friday: Exxon, Chevron, Phillips 66, AbbVie, and of course Staples PG. So huge week in earnings coming up. This is probably going to be the biggest week in terms of number of companies reporting, and also the importance of some of the guidance that we'll hear from some of these companies. Here's your current levels and levels that I see as support and resistance right now. We still kind of are trading in mid-range here. And of course, as I mentioned, coming up this week, we've got that Fed meeting rate hike decision. So 80% sort of favoring the 70.75% increase, and about 20% favoring the 1%. So that's sort of consensus on the street. So leaning towards a 75, but possibility for a 1%. Lots of housing data on Tuesday, and we've got the GDP number coming out on Thursday. So really big week coming up. It's going to be lots of information to digest, and probably lots of opportunities to trade. So, and speaking of that, hopefully we'll see you in the trading room, 8 o'clock in the morning. Jared will kick things off with engineering markets, and then 8:30 pre-market show, followed by 9:30 trading the market open for our members. So hopefully we'll see you at one or all of those events. Have a great rest of the weekend, everybody. Bye for now.